We've now already heard a lot about what's happening in Austria regarding tourism and getting it more sustainable. But we all know we need a broader view on the topic. We all need to work together. So now let's hear what the EU Commission is doing to get European tourism greener. I'd now like to welcome Andreea Staicu. She's Deputy Head of Tourism Units, Directorate-General for Internal Market, Industry, Entrepreneurship and SMEs at the European Commission. I'm very happy to have you here. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. I'm very pleased to be here today to talk about sustainable tourism and also from the European Commission perspective, what we do, how we accompany sustainable tourism in Europe. Perhaps I would like to first give an overview of my presentation this morning. I would like to structure it around three main themes. The first theme is that of the transition pathway for tourism, a document that was co-created together with the stakeholders, the tourism industry, also in member states, national and regional authorities. The second topic that I would like to touch upon is linked to the implementation of the transition pathway. And finally, I would like to talk about other measures and projects that we have at EU level in order to support green tourism. So, without further ado, perhaps before everything, I would like to take a step back to 2021, just to say that the context of the transition pathway for tourism was that of, on the one hand, supporting the green and digital transition, supporting the ecosystem in the transition, but also increasing resilience and increasing the recovery after the COVID pandemic. So the way to do this, following the updating industrial strategy at EU level, was to propose transition pathways for all the 14 ecosystems. And in the case of the EU tourism ecosystem, this was addressed first. The reason was because of very high economic value. As we know, the tourism ecosystem has a very high value for the EU GDP. It accounts for about 10%. It is very important also because it has very high employment. About 22 million employees work in tourism across Europe, and about 3.2 businesses. And this is extremely important because with COVID, a lot of these companies, which are for 99% SMEs, were very much touched by the pandemic. So in this context of a need for recovery and also to accompany the implementation of the green and digital transitions, we started a process that took about 8 months, where we actually created this document called the Transition Pathway for Tourism. That was also done together with everyone who wanted to get involved. So we had about 200 contributions from all across Europe. So the report, which you can see on the screen, was adopted in February 2022. And then from that moment on, we started the implementation process. Implementation, which again is done together with everyone who wants to get involved in the process. And here, many of the stakeholders have started a process of committing to the transition pathway. Also, we had an important contribution from the member states because in December last year, the Council adopted an agenda for tourism 2030, And this agenda for tourism, which takes into account all or almost all of the proposed actions in the transition pathway for tourism, shows the commitment also of national authorities to the transition pathway. And I will talk a bit later about the implementation process. But just to give you an idea of the content of the transition pathway, it comprises about 70 actions, most of which are structured around 5 themes: digital transition, green transition, policy and governance, stakeholder support, and skills and resilience. And specifically on green transition actions, I would like to mention, and again, these were actions that were proposed by the community, by the stakeholders, by the industry. So this includes the sustainable mobility. The idea is that transport companies should reduce greenhouse emissions, the implementation of sustainable mobility plans, the use of increased multimodal transport. Other actions include the circularity of tourism services. That includes the reducing the footprint of food services, reducing waste, increasing water efficiency. The idea was to support SMEs towards the green practices, and that includes, and this brings us to the project today, the implementation of the EU eco-label and of the EMAS and other types of ISO-supported eco-labels. Finally, one more action that I would like to mention is that the promotion of product and organizational or environmental footprints, so the so-called PEF method for developing sectorial rules for accommodations. One of the key elements in the transition pathway is actually the stakeholder pledges, and this is where you come in as well. The idea was that we co-created this transition pathway together, and we are going to implement it together. So what is important is that at your level, in your company, you can contribute by taking a commitment or making a pledge to the transition pathway. So we have set up a continuously open call for stakeholders to submit pledges to the transition pathway. Of course, all the stakeholders have full flexibility of the specific actions and objectives they want to set. And the idea is to show leadership and also spread good practices and best practices among the stakeholders. So we are going to continue to gather these pledges, and this will build evidence of the actions and progress in the transition pathway. We have so far published 382 pledges on our website. We had already 3 publications, 2 last year and one just this year at the end of March. As you can see, about 98% of these pledges concern sustainable or green tourism. And as you can see, there are many types of organizations that have submitted pledges, business associations, but also a lot of SMEs, also NGOs, national and local and regional administrations, and international organizations. And the pledges come from 23 member states, but also from other 9 countries, including the UK and the US. I take the opportunity to present a couple of pledges for green tourism. This is an example from Malta. It's a company called Ecomarine. which is a sustainable and educational life-watching enterprise. And for them, the aim is to educate and also conduct scientific research on board. And this is a good example of sustainable use of waters. They also want to register with the EU Eco Management and Audio Scheme, so EMAS, by 2025. Another example, this time for sustainable mobility, is Pays de la Loire, who is known as a very good cycling area. And there, their objective is that all its territory is accessible by green means of transport, and they will have 0 destinations which are achieved only by car. Finally, in terms of measuring the sustainability of tourism in certain areas, this is an example from the city of Zagreb. So they want to set up a uniform system for monitoring the sustainable development of tourism. And the idea is to set up a digital platform in order by this year to have a uniform system for monitoring the sustainable development in the city of Zagreb. Finally, I would like to give an overview of some other legislative projects and also of some calls that we have ongoing. So 2 initiatives that concern waste. One is about separating bio-waste according to the EU Waste Framework Directive. By the end of this year, all member states, citizens and businesses, including small and medium HoReCa businesses, will have to separate their bio collection. And the other initiative that I want to mention was packaging waste. There's currently the Commission proposal on packaging and packaging waste. Currently in co-decision, the aim is to reduce the generation of packaging waste. And in terms of key impacts for HoReCa, for the moment it has a ban on single-use packaging. We are talking about small packaging of 50 millimeters and 100 millimeters for those that we sometimes find in hotels for individual use. Then there are targets on reusable packaging and obligations to refill. Other measures that concern the measuring of environmental footprint are those regarding the Green Claims Directive, which was adopted very recently. The idea is to ensure that all labels and claims are verifiable, and they have an agreed basis at EU level. And here I would mention that this initiative recognizes the eco-label and the EMAS as reliable tools that can be trusted. In relation to the eco-label, perhaps now my figures here are probably will be overdone, because it's for the moment I have here 540 hotels and campsites that are awarded the eco-label. That I think is about to change. And over 270 hotels that have been registered for EMAS. Finally, I would like to mention a call which is now open by DG GROW, which concerns development of product category rules for hotel accommodations. This is an ongoing tender. Other projects that are currently being implemented by the European Commission concern, on one hand, the European Urban Agenda. There's a new partnership for tourism. And then there is a technical support instrument with 7 member states benefiting, and a project on connecting Europe by train. So there are 10 projects to establish new rail services and to improve the existing ones. The idea is to improve cross-border rail connections. Also, perhaps it could be interesting to know that there are 2 databases where you can find important information on ongoing calls and projects. One is that of the European Climate Infrastructure Environment Executive Agency, the so-called CINEA. It launched in January, online public dashboard. And there is information on a number of funds that concern tourism, such as LIFE or Horizon Europe, or the Innovation Fund. There is also the Cohesion Open Data Platform. The projects for 2021-2027 funds have now been approved, the majority of them. And I mean, taking all the caveats, because tourism is so diverse, it falls under very different funds. But what has been earmarked as for tourism, it's about 4.1 billion euros. So this is under the cohesion policy. If you'd like to find out more information about the different calls, about the different funds that are supported for tourism, you can access this guideline that we have on our website. It comprises important links to all the ongoing tenders where you can apply. It's important to know that we update this guide quite regularly. Finally, I would like to take the opportunity to ask you to get invested, to contact us if you'd like to submit a pledge to the transition pathway. This can be actions that you already have ongoing. It doesn't have to be something new. We are always at your disposal, so don't hesitate to get in contact. We have an online form where you can indeed submit your pledge or commitment. And we will keep you informed of all the implementation steps in the transition pathway for tourism. We have stakeholders events that are open several times a year. We are setting up an informal commission working group made of experts. There are 3 groups, subgroups in focusing, one of them on sustainable tourism. And finally, something that's very important, and it's open again to everyone, we hope next spring, is the setting up of an online platform. It will be a space for all stakeholders to get involved, share best practices, and also find out information on different projects and funding and so on. So we hope to have this ready in spring 2024. Finally, an important event, I think, for everyone in this industry is the European Tourist Day, which will take place this Friday. We invite you, if you haven't already subscribed, to follow online. There will be an opening by Commissioner Breton, Commissioner for Internal Market, and we'll also have 3 roundtables, one of which is dedicated to sustainable tourism. And for those who will be on the spot, there will also be an exhibition on meta-tourism. So we hope to see you there, if not online. Thank you very much.